Welcome back to another podcast here in the Ram's Den. And today we're joined by an Animal Rebellion representative, Tim Spears. You've been working with Animal Rebellion for how many years now, dude?
So I actually helped get Animal Rebellion going back in 2019 after the
Awesome.
first ever Extinction Rebellion that happened in 2019 in spring. And then
Awesome.
soon after that, I was like, right, I love civil disobedience, this whole model. I don't want to bring it
Yeah.
into the animal rights community.
Awesome.
So I tried to start it and then found out some people already had the cogs going into it. So I joined that team and then I started in with that team, helped with the local groups. And then once I had that, then I basically almost gave away my position. I introduced new people that could do the role and then walked away.
Cool.
And then I've been doing bits
Cool,
and
man.
pieces.
Yeah, so yeah. That's good. Oh yeah, cool, man. It's great. It's good to have you here because Animal Rebellion, I'm going to presume people know what it is already. If you don't know what it is already, you've seen them in the news. That they've just been recently in the UK, shutting down the dairy industry. Popping tires on the dairy trucks, blockading production facilities for McDonald's. What else? Covering Big Ben in white paint. So this is those guys. That's Animal Rebellion. So let's just kind of skip out that. What is Animal Rebellion? That's what it is. That's those guys, right? So Tim, I asked you to come on today because I know you personally and we've met before and I know you I knew your involvement with these guys, and I'm really pumped to get into some of what's been going on. The strategies behind it, the tactics, the logic, and also I'm really pumped to get into some of the criticisms that have come forward from people actually not on our side. Because let's be honest, I'm on your side. Obviously, I'm on the animal side, and you guys are fighting for animals. But there are some critiques that I think hold some weight, right? So I'm really keen to get into this today and to dig into this a little bit deeper, and Animal Rebellion and the kind of logic behind it. So let's go for the most recent thing, right? First off, well, actually, before we even get into that, let's go through your background first off. The people don't even know who the fuck you are, right? I'm jumping the gun here. I'm really keen to get into this. I'm really excited. So let's start there then. So you got your background with Animal Rebellion, but what is your actual? Who are you aside from that? What's your deal? What's your backstory? How did you come today to be this activist who's you're getting arrested? You're putting your freedom on the line for what you're fighting for. Okay, where's all this coming from, man?
All right, yeah, well, I always love answering this question. And actually, I suppose, disclaimer, I'm not like an official Animal Rebellion spokesperson. I'm a participant with Animal Rebellion, I have been heavily involved, etc. But at times I maybe don't, they've got this whole particular very love, peace, harmony, love and compassion message, and obviously that's the world I'm trying to create. But I'm a bit more controversial, I suppose, in some of the ways I communicate with people. But anyway, so that's
you're on the right channel.
So me, yeah, okay. So so I'm 37. And I grew up in this small town called Launceston in Cornwall, and I don't know, I always hated the idea of living in this small town where everyone knew you and knew your knew things about you and the concept of gossiping. I've actually just been reading *Sapiens* recently, and some of my police style visits, and I've understood the how it's natural to gossip, and it's not like I don't have anything against it, but for me, I don't know, as a neurodivergent person, I reckon I just it's something that doesn't sit well with me. So I was doing my A levels, and then once I was doing my A levels, a mate of mine introduced me to poker, the game of poker. So I started playing with him. I read a book, then I started playing in casinos, and then I just actually started making some money. I had this night shift work at a factory, and one day, the boss, I did something. Basically, said the boss said you can either go home or do what I asked you to do. So I just walked off.
Right.
I was earning enough money. And then a mate of mine said, basically, I have a room to stay in London. I have a room to rent in London. Do you want it? Do you want it? And it's like, yeah. So I moved up to London when I was about 20. Played poker for a living again until I was about 33 or so. It got harder. Everyone improved, and I wasn't improving because I wasn't studying outside of the game, and it's just my love interest for it just diminished. Wasn't really sure what I should be doing with my life. Did a few other little jobs. Basically, the way I was living my life in my early 20s was all I wanted to do was just spend time with my partner, spend time with my friends, listen to music, go to London's amazing just for going to see live bands and stuff and club nights and stuff. So it's just living my best life. And then yeah, I saw Cowspiracy about 4 years ago, and honestly, it was like Morpheus just handed me the red pill, and it
Mm,
was like the world is a completely different place. And not only did I like change my own spending habits, because I was like consuming animal products 3 times a day. I was having cow's milk in my cereal every single morning. I was having meat pretty much in every single evening meal with my sandwiches. I'd usually have like cheese or meat in it. Um,
mhm.
and after watching Cowspiracy, I was like, what the fuck is going on in the world? Like, this is a complete. I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
So I changed quite quickly, and then I saw slaughterhouse footage, and I was like, the world is messed up. I couldn't sleep for 5 days, like, and then I was out on the streets, and I joined like Anonymous for the Voiceless as
Yep.
soon as possible. Found like the closest ones that was in Leicester Square. Um, Joined there, met loads of cool people, and then just from that, I had like my this journey through activism. So did like
Mhm.
I started off in Leicester Square, then I set up my own one in Brixton and helped set up one in Camden and Bromley. Um, and then I started going to Speaker's Corner like every Sunday.
Mhm.
I used to go there with a sign that said like the only honest argument against veganism is you don't give a shit, and then just
Right.
allowed people to come to me. And it's like a bit of a clickbait title, but I'd always be
Mm,
like, mate, like I'm not saying if you're not living vegan, I'm not saying you don't give a shit. I'm just saying if you're arguing against the concept of veganism, you clearly don't give a shit.
right.
So I
Right.
try to have like obviously draw people in with that, but then try and have like a calm, rational conversation. I'm not trying to shout at anyone. I
Gotcha.
listen to people, like I allow people to speak. And then what was it? Yeah. After doing that for a year and a half, I'm sure like you probably noticed this. Like most people just walk by. Most people
Mhm.
don't give a shit, and some people that do stay and talk, like they're arguing against it. They just don't care. Obviously, some people
Mhm.
do. I know I've changed people to live vegan basically
Mhm.
from having conversations with them, but it's such a slow process. And then
Mhm.
XR, I heard about XR basically at the end of 2018. Um, First off, I was really pissed off with them because they weren't even talking about animal agriculture or wasn't even
Mhm.
using the word veganism. So the first action I ever went to was this roadblock in Elephant and Castle. Did that. Um, I was in the road, like holding a sign, and this truck driver was just beeping his horn, like going crazy at us. And when he stopped, I was just like shouted, "It's like, chill out, mate. We're only trying to save the world." And the organizer comes by, who I know really well now, didn't know at the time. He goes, "All right, I love the energy. That's just not how we do things around here." So
Mm.
like,
Right.
I was pissed off, but it's like, I'm not organising it, and I respect organizers. So I didn't say a word after that, but just did held the sign. And at the end of it, they do this thing I've never done before as well. They they basically stand in a circle and everyone shares like their experience of how the day went,
Mm.
debrief like type thing.
Yeah.
And like when it came to me, I basically just gave this speech about individual change and veganism, and like walked off skipping, going like, well, I did great then, and now I'm just so embarrassed by it, really.
Right.
Then I did like an NVDA with them early March. That's non-violent direct action, and it's like, okay, these lot they know what they're talking about. Like they've done their research, and
Mhm.
it was just for me personally, it fit my personality a lot better.
Right.
So then, yeah, I've just been involved in a variety of different campaigns. So I'm not like
Right.
affiliated or attached with
Got
one
it.
particular group.
Got it. So there's some good stuff to get into there. So your last bit there, you mentioned about non-direct action, non-violent direct action, and that how that I'll obviously clear that won you over as the strategy to move forward with, and that's what Animal Rebellion is doing. Non-violent direct action, meaning non-violent to people, not necessarily to property, right? Then there's an argument: can you even be violent to property? Okay, but the point is this is the first thing I wanted to really get into with you. So the most recent actions of Animal Rebellion, this non-violent direct action they've been doing, so it's been vandalism of the Big Ben and some buildings, and
Which I
also
did that.
yeah,
I was part. That was it.
sure,
Yes, right.
exactly. So that was you. That was you with Animal Rebellion guys, and then some other guys were also stabbing the tires, right, popping the
Yeah.
tires of dairy trucks, right. So a lot of people, obviously, the ones who are most happy about this are the vegans, the animal rights activists, and environmentalists too. They're happy about this stuff being brought up, and that goes without saying. That's just a no brainer. That's just a default, right? But a lot of people have brought up critiques of this, some of which that I have to think about here, and I'd like to ask you about. So first things first. Um, what's the logic behind this type of more, because non-violent direct action can be something like protesting, walking into a building, sitting down. It can be things like that. It could also be things that would be considered more aggressive and potentially some people could define as violence. For example, defacing a building or popping, destruction of property. So what's the logic behind this destruction of property versus other actions that would be, non-destructive? Let's say
Yeah.
non-destructive, non-violent direct action versus destructive, non-violent direct action. You could say, what's the strategy there?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd always say, I'm sure you would agree with this as well. I think like language is important.
Mm-hmm.
So I would describe what we're doing as like property damage. I'd
Yeah.
almost call it like self-defense, like we're disarming property that is actually destroying the world. So the logic behind it all is basically, have you heard of like, Kingian non-violence and
Yeah.
like his 6 steps? I can't remember all those 6 steps
It's all right. Don't
completely.
worry. People can Google it if they want to see.
But it's like, it's Martin Luther King, and it's basically, it starts off with, you start off with like information gathering. So gather information about like what you're targeting, and how you could potentially target it. And then stuff like there'll be like education and negotiations and all these sort of things. You take these sort of steps, and then once those steps have been tried and tested and nothing's changed, then you move on to the direct action sort of side of it. So I've been trying education for ages. Education within, like, say, veganism, it's been going on from the 60s, hasn't it? Something like that, maybe even earlier.
Right.
Like whenever, like, so was it Donald Watson come up with the concept? He introduced the concept of veganism, or the name of veganism, anyway. And like, it's like the numbers suggest that actually animal exploitation, the numbers are only going up. Like the amount of CO2 emissions and methane emissions and greenhouse gas emissions are only going up. So therefore, we believe like we've reached a point where like education isn't working anymore. So therefore, we need to like escalate our tactics.
So this is, sorry to interrupt, but this is your tactics, Animal Rebellion's strategy is specifically environmentally focused, right? It's not ethics focused. So you're referring here specifically to environmental education isn't working, right? Because that's the public goal, at least, of Animal Rebellion.
So we're basically so everyone that's like within Animal Rebellion and founded Animal Rebellion are like vegan for the animals. They're ethical vegans. They just want to see the end of all animal exploitation. We just felt there was a space within the either climate movement and activist movement in general where we can just we can focus animal agriculture in an environmental message, just because it's just a way that it might resonate and communicate with the public more often. It's like you might not want to, it's basically, it's like, do you want to continue having burgers and cheeseburgers, etc., or do you want a habitable planet? Because you can't have both. So we're just using animal agriculture on an environmental level in the messaging, because we believe that can resonate with the public, rather than like we would love to obviously teach people about the ethics of not exploiting animals, but hopefully that would just come along naturally if people joined us and then spoke to the people that actually do these actions and take part, because we are all, all on that sort of page.
So back to the Kingian non-violence then, because we'll get back to the environment ethics stuff, I think, in a bit, because we don't want to get off on tangents. But that's another area I'd like to get into a little bit more and understand more. So
I'm bad for going off tangents. So
it's okay. There's a lot to go through, man. So don't worry about it. It's going to happen, and I'm trying to keep it as keep it as organized as possible. Cool. So all right. So my point that I wanted to bring up here, and this might be too many levels deep for us to get into. Just let me know if there's ever anything that's just like, okay, that's just I don't know. Then just it's totally fine. But we'll see. And I hope you can give some insight. So the idea of the Kingian nonviolence, Martin Luther King, is coming from the civil rights movement, and I know this has also been used in for example, suffragettes. The theory of, okay, we need to disrupt, and sometimes it's a quite aggressive disruption. With the suffragettes, it was very aggressive, And
I mean, they smashed up Parliament. Like they smashed windows in Parliament, and like firebombs, like letterboxes and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, they did. And I would say that, intuitively, I'd feel that the reason that worked was due to humans having sympathy for humans, and whether vocal or not, many people most likely secretly had sympathy for the suffragettes. I mean, it's 50% of the population, right? Many people, whether they vocalized it or not, had sympathy for and people in America or across the Western world who were suffering at the hands of specifically America in the Martin Luther King's case, but of course other countries as well with their civil rights struggles of people that were brought into the country against their will and having to fight for their own fucking rights now. So a lot of people had sympathy there. So of course those movements you could use those tactics and work. But where I see a bit of a problem is why would people have sympathy or any legal people with legal power have sympathy for people stopping the production of milk when they drink milk every day? Most people, let's call it, I think that's 90%. If we're being, it's probably
96%
more.
apparently.
Right, 96% of people are still smashing milk, every morning, every day, dairy products. The sympathy's not there, right? So do you see there's maybe a bit of a problem? I mean, I'm putting this forward as someone who's, by the way, on the sidelines here watching and just trying to look and work this out. Is there a problem with using tactics that were used for human rights for not even animal rights, because that's not the message that goes to the public, it's environment, when most people are not sympathetic to, in this case, the dairy industry, that's popping the tires. Most people are like, well, I want that fucking milk, whereas maybe when the suffragettes were smashing stuff up, at least 50% of the people probably were like, okay, I want my rights, so that's good. Maybe less, right? But definitely more than those who would be happy about the milk companies getting smashed up. So what do you think about that?
Well, I would say, even at the time when the suffragettes was happened, there'd been numerous women that disagreed with what the suffragettes were doing. They didn't agree with those tactics at the time. Like a lot of people just thought they'd go through the education approach. Also with the civil rights movement, has
met 96% though?
No, well, yeah, of course, but it's got change. But what I would say is, maybe that's why we're using, like I said earlier, we're using the climate message as a tactical reason, because it is harder to get people to empathize and care about the plight of animals. We've all been socially indoctrinated from day one of our lives to believe it's perfectly normal, natural, and necessary to exploit non-human animals. It took me 33 years to even I just wasn't even thinking about it. But then when I was presented with that information, it's I changed. And that's when I thought oh yeah, change is just going to happen through education, because I changed and then went out into the world and then realized everyone's not everyone, but there are so many apathetic people. People need, people need a habitable planet. If our planet keeps on getting warmer and warmer, our planet isn't going to be habitable, people are going to be displaced. Once the ice caps are melting and the sea levels are rising, people along coastal towns won't have a home. They'll literally be underwater. There'll be islands literally underwater. I don't know the exact time frame, but
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. If you had a point, please finish it. I thought you were,
No, we're looking within 10, 20 years, maybe even less. We're looking at 1 billion climate change refugees. It's going to cause complete chaos. So I'd like to think even people think, oh, it's my milk. Well, it's not your milk, mate, because you're not a baby cow. But if people want, it's basically people have got two options. You can continue with this way of living, which is destroying our planet, and that's not a subjective viewpoint. That is scientifically proven, and we can completely prove that now. So we either keep on this way of what we're doing, and eventually the planet becomes unsustainable. We're going to have mass crop failures because the planet's going to be too warm and too unstable, or we change and we have to transition to this plant-based food system. So it's one or the other. We're not liked. I know 96% or whatever don't like it, but we're right. And it's that perseverance. It's basically saying we've got to change. Nothing's changing, and we're going to keep on doing what we're doing until change happens.
So at this point, right? Let's be honest here. Let's be real. At this point, the media, most mainstream media outlets are controlled by at least mildly progressive, call them left wing. That's the mainstream media. You got your Fox Newses of the world, of course, and your Sky News Australia's, and the UK has I don't even know if it's got GB News, right? They're kind of more conservative
talk radio,
talk radio, exactly. But the biggest ones still are left leaning or center left.
I disagree. To be perfectly honest.
You think so? The
Well,
point
like
is,
just
okay, but forget that. It doesn't matter. Politically alignment doesn't matter. The point is that most mainstream media across the Western world is talking about the climate crisis. It's all the time. It's constantly in the news. They're interviewing people. They're constantly ringing the alarm bells on TV. And yeah, they even go further than you guys. I mean, they make it even worse than it is, because they want clicks. They make it like we're all gonna die in like 2 years. You know, they make this shit up to get us even more upset than you do. You know what I mean? So my point of saying that is at this point, it seems to me like everyone who would already be convinced by this messaging, studies, you know, the facts, is convinced. They're there already. All we've got left is the masses that, for whatever reason, don't give a shit, and you know, they know everything, they've seen it, you know what I mean, and or they know they've got some hint of it at least, but they don't care. So when I hear you say, like, you know, well, we're right, and here's this fact, and here's this other fact, and it's like, okay, they're facts. They're facts for true. And Animal Rebellion is going out there and you know, going on TV with Piers Morgan, for example, with Orla, you know, and going on other TV shows and dropping these facts. But is that a solid strategy at this point? When I think even the mainstream media, which has way more reach than, you know, one interview with Piers Morgan versus like what, 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years, maybe, of the media constantly talking about this, and it's still not convinced people. Do you see that? So what's I guess my question to you is, at this point, is quoting studies and dropping facts the best strategy? Is disrupting in this, you know, aggressive way, and then using it to you know, put these facts out there? Is that bringing people over, or is that not even the aim for you guys? Are you trying to get something else out of people as opposed to bring people over? That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of here, trying to like figure out, you know, the strategy behind it all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so have you heard of Erica Chenoweth?
I don't know. No.
Okay, so she did this study. I can't remember how many years ago now, and she looks at basically hundreds of resistances, like non-violent and violent, and she came to the conclusion that non-violent movements were like twice, maybe 3 times more successful than violent ones. And also, whenever a movement reached 3.5% of the population, it always won as a non-violent movement. I'm not saying we need 3.5%. I don't think we'd need that 3.5% in the UK.
Just to clarify, these are movements for, I'm going to assume, human rights movements.
Yeah,
right?
Human rights. Yeah. Human rights. Yeah. Okay. The point of what we're doing isn't really to, I mean, yeah, like you said, like, yeah, these studies have been out for absolutely ages, and it still isn't convincing people.
It's been a while, hasn't it? I mean, people are stubborn as fuck, mate.
Exactly. Well, that's the problem. I mean, like, for me, I would say, like, you know, like, capitalism has basically trapped people into a life which, like, they don't have any other option apart from working like far too many hours a day, and they don't have the energy to try and campaign and try and make a better world. They're in like loads of debt. They've got family to feed. Like, energy prices in the UK are going like, stratospheric. Is that how you say it?
I don't know. I've never heard that word.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, the education approach only gets so far, but hopefully, like, the more, if we get these platforms and keep on sharing it, like, some people haven't heard of it. Like, I didn't really hear about it until like 4 years ago. So some people might hear it and get involved, but then other people potentially can be inspired just with the fact that we're taking action. It's like we're not just talking, because talking is basically like virtue signaling to a certain extent. Action is basically, it's like, you know, deeds, not words. It's like, I think that's a famous like suffragette sort of thing. And that's what we're doing. We're basically saying the dairy industry it's not the only. Obviously, there's loads of other factors, which is the reason why this world is falling apart and like our planet is getting warmer and warmer, and why there's so much exploitation and suffering and inequality going on in the world. Like, the dairy industry isn't responsible for all of that, but it's part of the problem. So also, like, the dairy industry really is actually on its last legs. Like, with new technology, scientists are saying they can actually recreate dairy exactly the way it is now, even with all the health complications that come with it. They can make it like they would do like in a brewery, like making a
Right.
beer or something. Like literally, it can
God.
just be manufactured in these tanks. Once that happens, that can be done on a scale which is so much. It probably just eradicate dairy like
Right.
overnight. The
Right.
way
Right.
like say Uber came along and like disrupted like the technology industry, and
Yeah.
Airbnb came along and disrupted like the hotel industry. Like once
Mm.
this is introduced, it will completely disrupt it. And like
Right.
so, we basically think like um,
Would you drink
dairy.
it?
What? No, of course I wouldn't.
No. No. No.
No, well, I mean, like I don't exactly. I like to think I try and take as good care of my body as
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
But well, I smoke a lot of weed, and etc. I like.
I think,
I would.
yeah, I don't think I'd go for it either. I don't think there's any
No.
need at this point. I would be interested in lab grown eggs though, just like as a one off thing. I know that they'd still be bad for you probably, but like just like every now and then thing.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah, just because
yeah,
yeah, what I imagine, yeah, I used to like eggs. You used to
yeah.
like eggs. It's almost like just to yeah try out again, but like
Exactly. Why not? If there's nothing morally or ethically wrong at all with it, why the fuck not? It's only your own
yeah,
health, right? That's up to you, isn't
exactly,
it? That's the
exactly,
point.
exactly, exactly,
So
exactly.
yeah, okay. So I get your point there, for sure. So you mentioned that the goal is not necessarily to at this point educate people anymore. I guess that's kind of what you're getting at here. That's part of it, like can be part of it, but there's a bigger goal. Um, if the goal is to put pressure on governments, which obviously it is to make change, would more people being on board not assist that? And of course, it would, and it's a rhetorical question. More people being on board would assist with that. So but that's not one of Animal Rebellion's goals to get people on board. And actually, this action that's going on right now, or that has been going on, definitely achieves the opposite effect with people who are not already on board. It actually, it quite clearly turns a lot of people off. Which that's not. I know that's not a criticism because that's not your goal anyway. But my point is, could that not be a goal? Is this not something to consider recruitment of people so you have more numbers to actually go out and have a bigger impact with the government protests?
So no, it is a goal. It definitely is a
Mm,
goal. Like we were trying to build a mass movement, so we are trying to recruit people, but obviously
mhm,
we're trying to mobilize basically like the radicals. Like we would basically, I would describe myself as like well, I hate these labels like far left, center, right, and
mhm.
everything. Like
Yeah.
I don't. I just want
Most
to.
people don't even know what the fuck it means. Like
No,
when
but
people say
but
it, they
anyway,
don't have a
like
clue.
in the general population's perspective, I would be classified as like a far left extremist, basically.
Yeah.
That's fine. People can label me what they like, but that's too. We're trying to tap into the people that are willing to take these actions, and we are like more people are joining us. Like more people, loads of people are getting in contact with Animal Rebellion, going, "How
Mhm.
can I sign up?" We're getting lots of donations. Like people loved what we did, but obviously, it's called. Oh shit! Well, I've lost my like thing, but like it's called like polarizing actions. Like we're doing
Okay.
actions where we know it's going to piss off some people.
Mhm.
That's okay. Like we don't need every person on board to be able to make change. Like
Okay.
we've literally there's aisles in London that have no milk whatsoever in the
Mhm.
shelves because of the disruption that we've caused. Like, obviously, that's going to piss off people. That's
Right.
also going to inspire people. Be like, wow, like that group did that with like I don't know how many people it was. It wasn't really loads. It was like quite a small
Mm.
number. So think about what we can achieve with more numbers. And so sadly, like with the Queen dying, as a collective, we decided it would be best to pause the actions for now. We're stopping it until spring next year. I'm not sure
Right.
if you heard of this story. I haven't. I've only heard it from a friend, but I haven't read it. But I know I'm pretty sure it's true. So there's this lady in I think it was in Inverness in Scotland
Yeah.
who she owns this chip shop, and she popped a bottle of champagne when like Liz died, and
Okay.
the whole town, the village, just came along and just smashed up her chip shop and like
Oh
ran
my.
her out of town. And now she's had her chip shop license revoked. She's not even allowed to be a chip shop owner. So, um, so we just like I wanted to go out like personally. Again, like I'm not an Animal Rebellion spokesperson, so these are just like my things. But obviously, like I'm a I'm a
Yeah.
participant. But
Sure.
I was ready to go out that day. Like I didn't care. Like the dairy industry isn't stopping
Mhm.
because like the Queen died. They're
Mm.
they're still going to continue with this industry that is like destroying this home, my only home, your home, our home. Anyone
Mhm.
that's listening, like if you live on planet Earth, like the dairy industry is responsible for making this planet uninhabitable. Um, so
There's a limit. There's a limit to how far Animal Rebellion's willing to go to piss people off and cause this division that you've mentioned. And going out when the Queen's just died is where they draw the line, basically. So it's a pretty fucking big line. It's a high line, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's what it would take to stop them, like the Queen has to die. That's the only reason we won't go out. Which is pretty funny when you think about it. But so basically, what you're saying there is, or what I'm understanding is that the divisiveness of Animal Rebellion is on purpose. Like it's actually you're trying to actually separate people out and and kind of tease out the radicals and actually like kind of with radical actions at the expense of fucking off, like pissing off a lot of people. Basically, you're trying to.
I mean, that's not the goal. Like, none of us want to piss off people. I don't. No, none of us want to piss people off. I don't want to piss people. I genuinely hate disrupting people. Like, I did Insulate Britain. I'm not sure if you know about that. And like, I sat in the. I went to prison for it in the end. And I sat in the road and like, I felt like I was going to throw up every single time I did it because I knew how angry the people were going to be. But I knew how effective we were being. We're being on the mainstream media almost every single day, and that gave us the opportunity to give that message. And now, honestly, like the narrative about insulation has changed because of Insulate Britain. It's not a coincidence. Like, you can look back and see through like Google searches and like the amount of times politicians talk about insulation. It is radically improved since we did what we're doing. So like. The goal isn't to make people annoyed, but we just accept and know that the actions that we're taking will annoy people. But like, we believe what the actions we're doing are right and justified, and will the test of time in history, if humanity survives the climate and ecological emergency, I think people will look back and say, well done to those people, and I wish more people did what they're doing and it made sense. But I don't know, like, it's only hindsight will prove that. Maybe we are a hindrance to the movement, maybe we are stopping and slowing down progress, but I don't think we are. We don't think we are, and time will tell, and we'll see what happens. But I do it to have these conversations as well. Like, and I hope I want to have civil conversations with people. And,
totally. Well, it's only possible here because I'm already on your side, and this is why, like I said at the beginning, I saw some of these arguments, some of these critiques, and I empathize with some of them, and I had some of them myself, and I thought, well, who better to do it than someone who actually fucking agrees with animal agriculture being the disgusting horror show it is, which we all know it is, and being a vegan, being an activist myself, of course, I figured I'd be the best person to bring all these things up. So I appreciate us having this conversation. And speaking of Insulate Britain, by the way, your boy, I don't know his name, but fucking hell, he did not fare well in the media appearances. The guy that just kept getting angry on TV. Oh, mate, bloody hell. And that kind of brings us on to some, the discussion of media appearances, because it's not your place to talk about him. We're here to talk about Animal Rebellion, right? So let's talk about Animal Rebellion's media appearances, because, again, I've got a few. I want to know what the fuck's going on over there with Animal Rebellion, because I don't. From how it looks from the outside, all right, it seems like there's either a bad strategy with media or there isn't a strategy with media not in terms of what you put out. I think what you put out is great. Like Animal Rebellion's messaging when it comes out, even though I'd prefer it to be ethics focused, but that's another point. It's good messaging. Like, you get into the media, you get the interviews.
On the social media, me now. Yeah, on the social
media, the news, the papers. I mean, you get out there, and that's important. But when going on shows, so I've seen two Piers Morgan appearances, but two appearances of people from Animal Rebellion against Piers Morgan. Now, it's not a secret that Piers Morgan is Piers Morgan, right? He is who he is, and that is the end of it. There is hours and hours and hours of footage of Piers Morgan being a top-class cunt with guests, right? And you know what he's going to do. He's got his tells. You see his face. When stuff's coming. You can figure it out. But on the only two appearances I've seen with Animal Rebellion representatives with Piers, it's like they don't know who he is. It's like they have no idea who they're going up against, and they get smashed. And this last one with Orla, and I'm just, take me through this. Is there a strategy going on here? Or is someone dropping the ball? Like, what's going on when they go up against someone like Piers? Because I think it needs to be discussed and figured out, to be honest with you. Or is that a conversation that's already happening? I mean, just give us some insight if you can.
Sure. I mean, one thing I would say, like, maybe, I can put you in contact with the media team, and if they would like to and you would like to, you could share some
Mm.
of your perspectives and you can have a chat with them like offline, etc. And like,
Yeah.
so we can. I'll sort that out after this. That we've done this podcast.
Yeah.
There
Cool.
there is a strategy. There is like a media team. There is a spokes training team and everything. And like they have been getting together and doing trainings, etc. I'm not sure if you saw me on the James Wales show, but basically, like I got in there by myself. I basically pissed him off on Twitter and
Yeah,
goaded
the
it.
radio
Yeah,
show, the guy that I saw that,
yeah,
and that was an example of you knowing your audience. You knew your
mm,
audience, you knew what he was like, and
yeah,
you went toe to toe with him, and
yeah,
it got scrappy, and like,
mm,
you know what I mean? It like, but
mm,
it was significantly better, like in
mm,
my opinion, than you going on and letting him shit all over you. And
mm,
even though you know, you threw a few low blows at him, but that's better than getting
yeah,
shit on. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say. You've got to know who you're going up against, but
yeah.
in
I
AR's
would say,
most famous appearances, it seems like no one has a clue what's going to happen, and they go in and get spanked, and it's
yeah.
really sad because
Mm.
everyone, it's a good opportunity, and it seems to
So
be
I
getting
haven't.
squandered.
I haven't seen the whole interview. I
Ah,
haven't
okay,
brought myself around to watching it yet. I don't know how long it
that's
is. I've
brutal.
seen. I've seen clips and pieces, but yeah,
7 minutes, mate. It's
like
brutal,
like
brutal.
like all. I would say like all Orla. She's like a full time Animal Rebellion activist now. Like used to be a
Mm,
nurse. I'm not sure she'll go back into nursing. Like
okay.
super smart, lovely, absolutely. Love that person.
But
Um,
yeah, I want to say that as well.
mm,
By the way, I said this. I made a video about this just recently, and I said that there's no doubt in my mind. Ola is a fantastic speaker. She's extremely knowledgeable,
mm,
extremely good at talking, and she would be an incredible lecturer if she went and give a university talk, college talk, or went on left wing media. She would be incredible. But against
mm,
peers,
mm.
man, it was really not. It's not her fault, but fucking
No,
hell, man,
but
got
yeah,
smashed
well,
so
exactly.
badly
That's the
by
way
him.
Piers is.
Yeah,
I've put my name in the hat basically. It's like I'll happily go against Piers Morgan, etc. But the thing
yeah,
is, though, like because of Animal Rebellion, they have a kind of like I said, like this l- pure love based sort. Like I called like
right.
James Wales an utter disgrace, and like
Yeah,
said he'll face his equivalent of the Nuremberg trials. That's not
yeah,
really Animal Rebellion style, and they know they can't. They wouldn't want to basically like put stabilizers on me or like rein me
right.
in. So they're
Okay,
basically just
okay.
like we love you obviously, and we're happy you're part of the group and the team and helping within.
Right.
And I helped. I was like a team captain for one of our teams basically,
Mhm, mhm.
or co team captain. But like for them, it's like we're if you can get onto the Piers Morgan show yourself, go for it.
Right.
But not as an Animal Rebellion spokesperson. And yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, like I've never been there, so I don't know what I would be like. But under the bright lights, like the
Oh,
build up
yeah.
for
Phew,
it, the
yeah.
tension, the big studio, Piers is like literally he's an expert at being a complete class A wanker. And
Yeah.
he doesn't. It's not an interview, is it? It's like basically, it's
No.
like him.
Fight.
He gets a guest on just so he can share his thoughts and opinions. It's like that's not how you do interviews, mate. Like
That is
I'd
such a
like the
prick.
first thing I'd teach him is like, do you even know how to do an interview? Or like,
Mm,
what's your point? And like, yeah, the whole thing with the hypocrite thing, it's like, bro, like we're all hypocrites in some shape or form. None of us chose to be born into the system. And are you saying that unless you live like the most perfect life possible, you're not
mm,
allowed to do any activism whatsoever? And then he goes and
mm.
eats that burger. Like I
Yeah.
saw that. And it's like he's just some fucking man child that like he
No,
really he's
totally.
he's an idiot. Like I would
Mm,
totally destroy him in an actual debate. I'd love to have a debate with him, but it's like none of they're not going to let me on him because like
no, no.
he probably know like if you ever saw me against James Wales, like
Mm,
he knows this guy is going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to take your shit. I'm going to call you out. I'm going to actually like what because he always uses the tu quo qui logical fallacy, doesn't he? He always
mhm.
does that hypocritical thing, mate. It's like that is not an argument, you moron. But yeah, like,
So
but
I guess
so
what
I don't. Hmm?
So what I'm taking here, I appreciate the insight here. So it's less about, so for Animal Rebellion, it's less about who can take Piers on and who can spank him, and it's more about we need to put somebody on who gives exhumes the values of AR, who is like love based approach,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
So they're kind of like that they must know that it's going to go very badly, but they're happy to take that if it means they get to stick with the love based message,
But the
which is
things are, you
basically
know,
what
like,
Peter's
but
saying.
but it's just like polarizing again. Like, you know,
Hmm.
you thought it was bad, like other people thought it was bad. Like, you know,
Hmm.
everyone. But I've got a friend like who is a total non-vegan, like gets it, you know, like, um, would isn't like probably isn't objecting to a vegan world, but
Mm,
isn't like really like. And he basically he's a super smart guy. Really
mm,
respects his opinion, and he
yeah,
was like, that wasn't an interview. That was just Piers Morgan talking over a really intelligent lady,
yeah,
and like, you know, so
exactly, yeah,
other people basically see it as like, we would potentially with sympathy with some people because they
yeah,
would just see Piers as a bully.
yeah,
Um,
that's
so
fair.
yeah, I don't know. Like again, like power of hindsight, isn't it? Like
Mm, mm,
you can analyze it after the interview's happened, but while the
mm,
interview's actually happening, you
yeah.
know, it's hard to think on the spot when you're stressed out and like, you know,
Oh,
like I
totally,
said about
mate.
these bright lights and
Oh,
everything.
totally, mate. It's not like I'm not saying I would do any better, even. This is the point is
I do get your
and
point. I do get your
yeah,
point.
like, and when I say
Definitely.
smashed her, by the way, I don't mean that he won the interview or he won the
Mm.
debate. I mean, as in
Just
he
talked
just
over her.
spat her around. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
she had no chance, because the it's not in her nature to talk over people. I guess she was waiting for her chance and waiting for her turn, and all that's fine
Mm.
if you're not with Piers Morgan. But no, I appreciate the insight on that. It's good now that it gives me more of an understanding of why it was Orla in the room as opposed to someone like you. They have a strategy behind that, and
Yeah, but
that was a
I'm
conscious
not allowed.
decision.
It's not allowed.
I understand it. I understand where they're coming from, and then that can be whether or not that's the right way or the best way. That's a whole other thing we could debate, but or
Yeah.
discuss, not debate. But yeah, at least I understand the point
Mate, if you
now.
got any connections to get me on the Piers Morgan show, please do.
I'd love to. He Joey was invited, and Joey was Joey Carbstrong was one of the
Yeah.
people that was going to go on to discuss these protests, but then they opted for.
Or recently,
Um,
like really
oh yeah,
recently.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was going to be Orla, and they had the two other people, Joey and somebody else, and
Mm.
they went for Orla, most likely because they knew from
Yeah.
history, Joey would
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
smash
Yeah.
him. You know what I mean? So it's
Which,
like,
yeah, I love to see
yeah,
actually Joey against. I mean, I have my disagreements at times with what Joey does, but you know, I think his place is obviously in a good place. I think
mm,
maybe he's a bit. I mean, I was angry as fuck when I like first turned vegan. I remember like actually like few days into living vegan, I went to the pub and I was like,
mm.
"What vegan beers do you have?" And the bartender looked at me like, "What?" And I was like, and I just went mental at him. It's like, "What? You
Oh
don't know
mate,
what vegan beers are? What's your problem? Do you
oh
hate
mate,
animals?" And the bartender's just like, "Chill out, mate." And so like, so but like, I am passionate as hell. Like I'm still incredibly passionate. I'm still doing my best, but that anger has gone. I don't
right.
know. Well, it comes back and goes, but I'm not as angry as I used to be anyway.
Fair enough.
Um,
Fair enough.
but,
So I've gone through quite a few of the points that I wanted to do, and I'm happy that we've got into this a little bit more. One critique that I saw that I actually hadn't come up with, I hadn't thought about myself even, but seems to be an interesting one. A lot of conservative or right leaning, or actually just kind of regular people, and like Piers as well. And this is one of the things Piers he. So what he got wrong is the reason. His logic was faulty, right? But there is
always, his
definitely
logic's always
completely
faulty.
faulty, right? But he does have a point in that if somebody is telling you to do something, but they're being a hypocrite, it is the worst fucking thing. It is. It's almost like it's looking down on you. It's one rule for me, another for thee. It is, and that unfortunately, with a lot of environmental protesters and also vegans and animal rights protesters, tends to be what people get the impression of. Now, with animal rights protesters, it's harder for people to call hypocrisy because, at the end of the day, most vegans have done away with these massive monstrous things that are really fucking up the animal world, right? The breeding and killing of billions of animals. Vegans are like not funding that right now. What's left is stuff that is largely either extremely difficult to avoid or impractical to avoid, after removing all of those products, and then we left with all these gray areas. So it is harder to go be like Piers, or the bees or whatever. Like he's trying, but it's difficult.
It's like the
However,
almond milk, wasn't it? Do you drink almond
right,
milk and
almond milk and bees
avocados?
and honey and whatever.
Avocados.
Yeah, or not honey, sorry, avocados and almonds. Yeah.
Mm.
Now, like applying that thing to you guys, or what Piers could have done, even and didn't do, and I think is more of a valid point to bring up, is that So Animal Rebellion, one of the things they were doing was stabbing the tires of trucks, and a couple
Drilling.
of
We had these drills, like proper
drills.
drills,
Sorry,
like
yeah,
bang, yeah,
drilling them. Sorry, not stabbing them. Yeah, it
That's
sounds
right.
sounds a bit more gangster, doesn't it? Drilling
Mm,
them. You're right. Drilling
yeah,
the trucks.
yeah.
My bad.
Disarming them.
Disarming the trucks. Yeah, if you want to use a more softer word. So yeah, taking out the truck's tires, and some people mentioned this in the comment section of one of the social media posts, saying now you've just put a load of tires, rubber tires, in a
Mm,
landfill,
mm,
right? So,
mm,
and that's a valid point. That is
mm,
exactly where they'll go. They'll go to a
mm,
landfill
mm.
because they don't, as far as I'm aware, I
They're
don't believe
yeah,
they
they
can
won't be able
be
to use them again.
recycled.
Like the
Yeah,
holes are
or
too
whatever.
big. I
Yeah.
don't think they could repair them.
So they go to a landfill, right? Now that, as environmental
Mm,
activists creating waste for a landfill through a protest, that's a pretty bad visual, isn't it? That's bad optics. So I guess my point to ask here is: do the ends justify the means? Is that how it goes for Animal Rebellion? Like, so is it okay for an activist to engage in something that is causing waste and causing, something, anything
mm,
environmentally destructive? For example, flying to events, or
yeah, mm,
driving to
yeah,
events and
mm,
creating waste for landfills. Is it okay for activists to do that as long as it serves their agenda? This feels a
mm,
little bit like one rule for me, another
yeah.
for thee, right?
All right. So I'll touch on the first thing with the say like the hypocrite thing. Like
Mm,
I'd say like the one like the reason why Piers is so confused and is his logic is flawed with calling us
mm,
hypocrites is that we're actually not asking anyone to change individually. We don't put any pressure on anyone to do anything like individually. And we hope by just if people joined Animal Rebellion as a non-vegan, they'd probably start living vegan just by being around us and just like so. But our message is system change, not individual change, and like if we change the system, like people just naturally change individually anyway, because the industry won't be exist to contribute to. And yeah, and for the tires, oh, yeah, you're right. Like I don't know. I personally think that justifies the ends justify the means. Like if, like, say, this truck, hypothetically, like just say this truck is responsible for X amount of CO2,
mm,
and if we like delay it, stop it, it reduces. I don't know. There's less CO2 reduced
mm,
because of that truck being disabled. I mean, they don't like they go to landfill, but they don't have to like burn them. Like that's their choice or
mm.
something. If the tires are to be burnt in a landfill, like no,
Right, right.
we that's not my decision. That's their decision. It doesn't need to be done. You could actually literally just like leave tires somewhere and they just sit there and won't do anything. Like
Yeah,
a
I get it.
tire,
Yeah, yeah.
and so
There's a bit of introspection to be done, though, is what I'm trying to say. Do you feel like, like when, for example, when Animal Rebellion locked down the production plants for McDonald's, and they
mm,
just sat outside, blocked them, got in the way. I mean, to me, that's the perfect protest, because it's like you're just getting in the way. I mean, you're stopping them, and that's it. You're in the way. What can someone say? Oh, you're causing. No, I'm just sat in the fucking road or whatever. Just park the car there. Like, we're in the way. That's all we
I
are.
just like sitting
You
in the
know.
road.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? Whereas, yeah. So it seems like a minor thing, but I just wonder about, again. I guess it's back to what you said. You're not trying to convince people necessarily, but people will push back because of these things, that if they feel that there's hypocrisy, or that you act a certain way, but you're demanding something else. Do you see how it can be a
Well,
little
I try
bit?
to live by example. I mean, like not only say have I stopped it, with my consumer choices with animal
Mm,
products and the food that I buy. I try to acquire food locally. I try to acquire food from actually either bins, like thrown away from shops, or from a
mhm,
shop we've got a deal down the road when like their food's past their sell by date, we'll just come along and pick it up. So I live in
mhm.
a communal house, and we have communal food mainly
Yeah.
made from free food. Like all my clothes now come from charity shops. All
Mm,
any technology is all secondhand or given to me. I am. I'm not going to fly anymore. I don't have a car. I use like public transport or a bike. Like I personally am trying to lead by example, but we're all
mhm.
hypocrites in some shape or form. And I'm done with the whole like I'm not going to try and like shame anyone for not living a perfect life. Like if
Yeah.
you're trying your best and you want to see a new world, like you don't have to live in absolute perfection to achieve that world. But
Oh,
like I don't
no,
know.
I
Yeah.
know what you mean. I
Sorry.
agree. It's not about perfection,
Mm.
but you can see how it can be a potential issue if
I can see, but this is the way like our mainstream media works. Like I would, yeah,
Mm,
for me, like the mainstream media in the UK
Mhm.
is a conservative media.
Okay.
There's hardly any working class people as journalists. So to become a journalist in this country, you need a degree minimum.
Okay.
And like
Yeah.
now a degree is like, it's like what? You like 30, 40, 50 grand in debt, most
Mm.
people are to get a degree. Um, Sometimes you need two. And then also, if you want to get a job within these companies, you have to almost always do an unpaid internship for at least a year, maybe 2 years. What
Yeah.
working class person can do that? And
Mm.
also, like, you need connections to be able to get in there, and that's usually through the social circles that you're in, like within.
Right.
And so, like, the media really does shape the way the public think. Like, so
Mhm.
the point of the media and what they say, like all these papers will say, it's like we're just reflecting the public mood. But it's like we know that's not the case. We know the media is trying to influence the public's mood.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
the like I mean I can't believe I just cannot believe like the coverage with the Queen. Basically, it's absolutely mental. Like there's a BBC. I saw a BBC clip the other day, and the BBC presenter was like basically going like, the cost of living crisis is like who it doesn't really matter anymore. Like all that matters now is the fact that the Queen's dead. It's like, are you joking, mate? No, no, no.
Oh, it's
Like
mental.
loads of people who haven't, Liz lived a life of luxury paid for by the taxpayer. Like I
Mhm.
don't know how many castles she owned, and then we've got like homeless. Have you seen like all the pictures of like homeless people next to like billboards of the Queen, like
Mm.
marking her thing? And it's like this kind of, like all the money.
Oh,
I don't know how much the funeral's going to cost, like
yeah,
billions.
mate.
We've got cost of living crisis and people living on the streets, and
People
our
have
press is
collectively.
basically trying to and our press is basically trying to convince people that all
Mm.
that matters now is that a Queen's dead. It's like, no, the monarchy is actually a problem. They're
This
causing
is
more
this
problems.
this is the thing, mate. Like, and this is what this is why, like, I am overall on the side of Animal Rebellion. I am overall like behind what all the, even though I have my critiques here and some things that I'm not completely convinced of. At the end of the day, I'm happy that this is happening versus not happening, and the reason is that and well, what I find to be crazy actually is that people are getting behind the supportive of the Queen and stuff, but they would despise you. But the thing is, the Queen never gave a one solitary fuck about any of you. Yet, Animal Rebellion, you're going out there and protesting, of course, for animals. You want to help animals in animal agriculture, but also it's for you. It's for people. It's also for people that you actually don't want to see people suffering from the negative effects of animal agriculture, whether it be climate change, like extreme temperatures, extreme weather, whether it be health, health elements of it. It's even if it doesn't appear to be that Animal Rebellion is out there for the working person,
Mm,
because they're disrupting the working person.
mm.
Overall, part of the goal is to help the average working person, whereas the Queen never did fuck all for anyone. So
She
it's
made it worse. She made it worse with if you look, like, I can't remember all of them, but if you
mm,
like, the Queen has the option of making says with it, like, having her influence on certain decisions. And
mm,
there's so many decisions that she's like basically said, like, more land for us, like this, that, and the
right,
other,
right, right.
and all these rights. So it's like, it's unbelievable. Like, have like grouse shooting? You heard of like grouse shooting?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like, so
Hunting and yeah.
so they literally burn like the ground, which
Mm,
would like release like crazy amounts of CO2,
hmm.
and then like all the grouse that are like hanging around there have to fly away from the fires, and they start shooting them. That's that's what our royalty's doing. Like the Queen's done that. The Queen, you've seen photos of the
It's
Queen
fucking
walking
disgraceful. Yeah,
away carrying like birds, like dead birds in her hands. Like they're a bunch of like narcissistic psychopaths. Like
absolutely. Yeah.
honestly, like I despise the concept of royalty. Like
Hmm.
I like I don't hate anyone, and I
Yeah.
have no ill will against an individual, and it's not like it's
Mhm.
not their fault they were born into that family. And if you're from day one of your life, if you're taught like, yeah, you're special, you're royalty, this is what your world's going to be, and
Yeah.
you basically brainwash this kid from the get go. And so yeah, I can't blame Liz for the
Yeah,
way she.
yeah, it's not about
Uh,
hate and it's not about celebrating that she's dead. Like I've seen some people do this fucking
I'm not selling.
disgraceful,
No,
sick
I'm not. Yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah.
man. It's not about
I
that.
made some controversial posts in the sense of like I basically asked the question. I go on one of my social media posts. I go
Mhm.
like, I personally don't understand how so many people are mourning a person they've never met before.
Oh yeah.
Um,
No,
And
that's a
then
fair
like,
comment.
mm, mm,
That's not
mm,
celebration of death. That's not like you're
mm,
saying, "Oh, screw her." I've seen
mm,
people literally be
mm.
like, "Fuck her, like
Yeah,
piece of shit." Da,
that's
da,
not
da,
my
glad she's
style.
dead.
It's not my style.
Well, it's just bad. If anything, it's just bad taste. It makes
Mm,
you. It says a lot about you. It doesn't necessarily say much about her. It doesn't make me want to look into what she did. What was so
mm.
bad. It makes me think that you're a cunt, basically, if
Yeah,
you do that.
basically. Yeah.
And it's
Mm,
okay to be like critical of the queen. It's okay, but it's of course it is. But I mean,
mm,
either side extreme, either crying so much, or oh she's a bitch. I hate her. Fuck,
mm,
she's glad she's
mm,
dead.
mm,
You're all idiots. Like you know
mm,
what I mean. I find
mhm,
it's
mm.
equally stupid either way. To be honest with you. So now you went into something there that was more based on ethics that the Queen was doing. That was something like despicable, like burning the grass to get the grouses up and then shooting them dead. And of course
Mm.
that is a big ethical problem, and that and it's a morally disgusting, despicable thing to do. And I know that you're driven by ethics, and a lot of people in Animal Rebellion are driven by ethics, the ethics of using and abusing animals, as well as the environmental impact. Now, earlier on, you mentioned that you've gone down the environment route because you saw that maybe that was more of a gap in the let's say, I don't know, the not market necessarily, but there's like a space for this
Yeah, the
specifically.
activism, collective,
Right.
ecological, ecology basically
Of
have
course,
changed.
of course. So with what we said earlier, in that, like, I know we can't prove this either way, but I feel like most people got the environmental message over the last 5 or 6 years from various sources, various places. A lot of very alarmist media articles, stuff that I wouldn't necessarily say you probably wouldn't agree with. Even I'm talking like over the top alarmism coming from the
Yeah, yeah,
media.
yeah,
It's been
yeah,
pretty insane. So people have
yeah,
got the message that the climate's
mm,
gonna all fucked, and
mm,
so I guess my point I wanted to kind of close on and get your opinion
mm,
on
mm.
with the environment stuff. Do you not feel that maybe that it's with the environmental messaging, that this the statistics, all the facts, that maybe it's kind of fallen on deaf ears for a lot of people right now, and there's a chance of moving people emotionally with matters of injustice, inequality, ethics, pain, suffering of individual animals, or potentially, even if you want to focus on environment, individual people specifically and directly suffering from environmental destruction that was caused by animal agriculture, and linking it back, as opposed to going out there with these big, to be honest with you, difficult to understand points about, in X amount, and hard to imagine in X amount of years this could happen, and there's this temperature over here, because a lot of people, they just don't connect
Mm.
with this kind of thing. I don't feel so. Is this something that's being considered at all, or has been, or what? Give me some
Yeah,
insight.
no, so when Animal Rebellion first got together, like
Mm.
in 2019, basically, like we're having our strategy meetings. It was solely like we're never going to use the word vegan, and I don't think we never really do use the word vegan. And
Okay.
I personally, I don't. I'll happily be proudly say I am vegan, but I personally don't use the word. I'm going off on a tangent here. Hopefully, I bring it back in. But I don't use the word vegan because I don't think we need a label to describe ourselves.
Right.
I would say vegan basically means having basic manners. Like I don't want to harm anyone. I don't think I need a label to be able to
Okay.
like describe that. Basically, also it's like lost all meaning. Like people use veganism for health or for the environment and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, to begin with, Animal Rebellion, it was solely just the environmental message. And I think the environmental message every single year is getting a bit more like intense with people, like the new IPCC reports that are coming out, and England just hit 40 degrees C recently. I think that did scare a lot of people.
Do you think so?
I think so. Like seeing those satellite images of like Hyde Park was literally like a desert. Like you see the satellite images of like this what was it, July this year and July
Hmm.
last
Hmm.
year. It's like the country is just completely brown. But also like the more people that are joining Animal Rebellion, they are virtually all, they're coming from a ethical rights vegan perspective, and a lot more
Sure.
people do want the ethical message coming in. So
Okay.
like I said, like to begin with, we were basically like, we're not going to bother with that approach. We're just going to focus on the environment. But with new people coming on board, having a say, and we do listen to people, it's like we're not a dictatorship. If
Yeah.
someone comes along and joins the movement, and we think like that's a good idea, we'll go with that.
Okay.
And I think there has been a bit more ethical messaging within like what
Hmm.
Animal Rebellion is coming out with. Like it's not the primary function,
Yeah.
even though it is the primary function. Animal Rebellion exists for ethics, but
Sure.
the messaging exists on the climate just because we think it's a way of like just tapping into the public consciousness.
Gotcha.
And like, but you maybe disagree. I don't
Yeah,
know. Yeah.
I feel like I had a chat with a friend about this recently, and Lawrence, who's been on the channel before, and he made a really good point, an interesting point that especially with people like Piers Morgan, and not necessarily him because he's never, fuck him, but his fans and his followers, right? They are
Disciples.
his disciples, whatever, right? These people, and I think a lot of people in the UK and the world over, they're conservative. The majority of people across the entire world are conservative. They don't know it, maybe. They don't vote, maybe, that way. But in
Yeah.
most things they do, the way they live, it's conservative, traditional lifestyles that they live, right? So when it comes down to like politically where they're going to line up, environmental activism, environmental activists, environmental science is politicized. It is politically left. That's where it sits. Now, most average people don't even know where they stand politically, but they are. I would say, I would assume, and I would put my life savings on this, that majority of people fall into that conservative category. They may
I'd agree.
they may vote another way, right? But most of their beliefs fall on a traditional conservative. So my point is, with the environmental stuff being so politicized, I hope Animal Rebellion takes what they've been learning, which has been incredible to watch from the outside. And I was involved in a little bit of some stuff in London as well, which, being there myself, there's a great framework. There's some great, amazing foundations have been built. And I really hope they consider the ethical side soon, because it will move things from a politicized point to a far less politicized point, because veganism, maybe it was politicized, maybe it still is, people consider it woke, but it is by anywhere near as politicized as the environmental stuff is. And maybe it could have more of an emotional impact on some of these, Piers Morgan fans who, I don't care about all that. I don't believe in environment and blah 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 and all that climate change shit. But that I don't want to see that animal get stabbed. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's a lot more visceral, and it could work. It could.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's these things called like the moment of the whirlwind, and like tapping into like the public consciousness, and it's like it is hard to tap into like what people are thinking and feeling. And when we're up against like the mainstream media, like I said, who are primarily conservative people, like influencing, like when I spent time in prison, the third person I was in prison shared a cellmate with was this working class painter and decorator. He's been like voting conservative all his life, him and his family. It's like, mate, like this party does not give a shit about you. It's like, but they convince people because of like, the influence. Like, have you seen the Murdoch dynasty on BBC iPlayer? It's like a really good documentary. It basically talks about how whoever Rupert Murdoch is backed to be prime minister in this country has gone on to win, be the prime minister, because the Sun reaches millions and millions of people, and they've got professionals that know how to manipulate the general public in the way to vote. So, like, yeah, we're always evolving. Like Animal Rebellion, like we try not to be static. We try to integrate as many new people as possible. We try to keep like the way it works. It's like these multiple circles, and they have their own mandates, and like people within those circles might are making key decisions. But like as long as we trust them, and I trust all the people in those circles because I know them personally. I know like how smart and like how passionate and everything they are. I trust those decisions, and I'm not gonna I don't need to get involved and like have my say and like waste time. It's like, no, cool, you do that, and I'm like happy just to like almost follow orders. Like personally, like I'm happy like almost being a pawn in these movements. Just tell me what to do, go this, because like organizing is hard as fuck. Like it's so hard to organize, it's so hard to mobilize, and like people like Orla, like all these like Orla should be so great at doing those sort of things. Like they were at Vegan Camp Out, they did an amazing talk, they got people to sign up, and now over the last week we've got people that have never done any actions before. It's really their first arrest. They're like totally radicalized now. They like can't wait to get back out. They're going to go to their local communities. They're going to share this with their friends and family. And then hopefully when spring comes around, we're going to be bigger. So it's called momentum driven organizing. So you do an action, you create a story, you share your message, and then like people would get inspired, and then like more people join, and then like you integrate them into the movement, get them doing stuff, and then like when we come back out and do the actions again, we're going to have more people, and then the more people, when we have more people, we'll be able to do bigger and bolder. I mean, if you thought like like the last week was was pretty full on. Like you won't see nothing until spring. It's going to
All
be
right.
like a whole other level.
Awesome. I look forward to seeing it, and who knows, maybe I'll be. I don't know where I'll be at the time. I'm traveling a little bit with some work from what we're doing. We're doing a project here as well. But who knows? Yeah, I want to be get involved if it happens to line up. I'd like to come and get involved in some actions and thank you for getting out there and putting yourself out there and thanks to everybody you're working with as well for putting yourself out there and doing this very brave and difficult activism. It's definitely not quite as straightforward and simple as something like an outreach, and not to throw shade at any outreaches out there, but just a big props for the guys who get out there and do this kind of activism, because it requires a lot more from you than many other forms of outreach and activism that do. So
can I just add one thing? If we are, I mean, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm free all days. I could chat all day long. But one thing I would like to add, like I would never ever feel or want to feel like I'd ever guilt trip people into having to do what I do. Like,
Okay.
I'm in, as a white male in this country, like I do face way more privileges when I interact with the police compared to someone who isn't white, maybe who isn't a male. Like, sexism obviously exists within the police, racism exists within the police, homophobia exists within the police. Like I've been like arrested like 30 odd times now, I've been to prison twice. I've actually only experienced like the police being nice to me, but like I've heard horror stories of other people, like just being subjected to like violence from the police, and that's because like the police are so inconsistent. Like you're basically like you're given someone the legal ability to use force. They're legally allowed. They're like the only people in the country legally allowed to use force, really. And you're subjected to their worldview. So like say I could be like sat outside my house smoking a joint and a police officer walked by. One maybe doesn't give a shit, just carries on walking. Another one's like, mate, maybe don't smoke that outside, like go away. Another one could wrestle me to the ground, put me in handcuffs and take me to the police station. You're literally subjected to whatever the worldview of that police officer is on the day. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. And like, I never would ever, if people aren't in a position to do what I'm doing, we all do what we can. And outreach, and like what you're doing, you've got a good platform. You're reaching loads of people. I love the humor that you use. I think humor is amazing. I think you're doing a really good job. And like, all of this, like this ecology of change, like we're all doing what we can. And like, it's this team effort that's going to change the way. And hopefully like these conversations as well, like, can help and inspire people or put people's minds at ease and maybe like look at things from a different perspective. Because that's the thing, like, we're almost like we've been just told, like the way even school works, like schools are basically like, if you can remember shit, like you're the important, clever student. But like, it doesn't really help with creativity or questioning things. And like,
no, of course,
when was the last time you ever used like trigonometry in your life? Like the stuff that we're taught in schools is completely bullshit.
Yeah, totally.
And like now we have to pay, like, this country's fucked. Like we have to pay like 30 or 40 grand to get another education outside of like to finish that A levels. So we do what we can. And I think outreach is great. Educating people is great. It's just like, for me personally, I did it for a year and a half, probably almost spending 10 to 15 hours a week every week doing it. And it just like, I got a bit burnt out. It wasn't for me.
Sure.
I just prefer what I'm doing. And also like, I think I can do both. I can be a bit disruptive, be a bit of a nuisance, but also try to be as articulate as I can about why I'm doing this and like try and educate people along the way or share information. I mean, like, I'm not trying to be condescending when I'm like, I'm not to you obviously, but like, educating the public. Some people might know like a lot of this stuff, but it's just like, trying to share the rationality. But
I get it. I get it. I think it's a good message about doing what you can, and don't feel guilty or guilt tripped into doing something that's not down your alley. If you're doing something, you're doing more than 99.9% of people in the world. So
exactly.
Please keep fucking doing that. Tim, it's been awesome to get you on, mate. People can find you on Instagram, right? Aggravated_activist, is it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, if you want to, I don't know if there's links or anything.
I'll put links in the description to your
and you
socials.
can do my Facebook as well. My Facebook's like completely open, so it's just like Tim Spears. And Twitter as well, Tim Spears Twitter. You can just find me on Twitter. And the YouTube channel. I've got the YouTube channel.
Okay, yeah.
Tim talks. So like
Nice.
and so now, I mean, there's only a few videos on there. Oh my god, like the first video I did, I don't know if you saw it, but like
Not yet.
it
No,
was
no.
40 minutes long,
Right.
right? I thought I could just turn on the YouTube, you
Right.
know, create the video, click a button, it's just like you add the person. It's like then I looked it
No,
up
no.
and you've got to download all this software, add all this stuff. It's like fucking hell, this is so complex.
Yeah.
Finally got it. It was like a minute before I said I was going to do it. Got it up running, can hear Sophie, she can hear me, we're talking to each other fine.
Yeah.
And then like 20 minutes into it, my housemate shouts up to me, it's like, Tim, turn your music off. It's like, what are you on about? I had Spotify playing on my computer and it's like, it played through. So the first 20 minutes of that video is just like dance music and you can't
That's
hear
so
anything.
funny. Oh my god.
But
That's
then, but so
hilarious.
there's two videos. So it's like
Right.
the whole thing's like 40 minutes long.
Right.
And
Right.
then my mate basically sent me an edited version when I cut the music off.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
there's an episode where 20 minutes of us talking without the
Yeah. It's
music.
gone. Yeah. 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 Cool.
The first bit was gold. It was absolute gold dust
Oh, it's
with
a
the stuff
shame,
I was
isn't it?
saying. But
Oh, it's all right, man. This happens, and when you first start a channel, this is the kind of shit you got to go through. I went through it
yeah,
as well. So,
but,
cool. And people can find Animal Rebellion on Facebook, Instagram, website as
all
well.
of that. There's like animalrebellion.org for the
Sweet.
website, and then Instagram, Twitter,
Perfect.
TikTok. I
Perfect.
think I'm not on TikTok
Nice.
personally,
Yeah.
but yeah, they're on all the social media channels.
Cool.
And yeah, via the website is probably the easiest way to sign up. Like you can
Mhm.
just follow the things there, and they often do like Zoom calls and training videos. And on the website, the Animal Rebellion YouTube channel, they've got quite a few like Know Your Rights trainings, and like
Cool.
the like history of civil resistance type thing, and like educational sort of stuff about how you can get involved, and maybe like the theory of why like it's like we use these sort of tactics.
Awesome. Well, we've done a pretty good job of explaining that a little bit today, and people can go find out more in more detail, do some of these courses maybe if they want to know more. Again, mate, really appreciate you coming on and letting me give you a bit of a, I guess you could call it like, I don't know, lightly spiced tofu grilling.
No, this is an honor, mate. Honestly, like, thank you so much for having me on. It's really, really, this is great. I love having these sort of chats, so I really
Amazing.
appreciate it, mate. Because
Amazing.
like you've got a decent following, so hopefully this is seen by a few people and stuff,
Yeah.
and hopefully it can inspire some people and just create a conversation, isn't it? It's like these conversations. I personally think that's the way to change. That's what I wanted. I thought the world was going to change for education. That's what I wanted it to happen through. I don't want to go out there disrupting people. Like, it was fun actually spraying Big Ben with those fire extinguishers, but there's other things I'd rather be doing. I don't want to spend like 24 hours in a bloody police station, but
yeah, fair play.
I'm trying my best, and I'm willing to put my hands up and say, you know what, maybe I fucked up here, maybe it wasn't the best thing, but it is coming from a place of like love, and it's coming from a place of like, I do deeply care. And I just don't want to see anyone harmed. I just want people live their, human or non-human, live out their lives in peace and harmony. And we don't always have to you don't have to agree upon everything, but I think there's certain fundamental truths that we should be kind to each other. And if our actions harm someone else, then we should take the perspective of the victim rather than the oppressor. So that's sort of like the way I do it.
Absolutely. It's a great finishing statement, mate. I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks again.
No problem.